Hello and welcome to another episode of Still Processing, a 76ers podcast. On today's episode, we discuss the Sixers' recent two-game winning streak, Ricky Council playing the best ball of his young NBA life, and also take a look at the hometown kid returning to Philadelphia, of course, one Kyle Lowry. All that and more on today's episode of Still Processing, a 76ers podcast. Hello, welcome to another episode 17, the Buddy Healed episode of Still Processing, a 76ers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Chavalella here, of course, as always, with my co-host, Sam DiGiovanni. Sam, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. It has been some of the definitely more fun times of the hospital / Embiidless Sixers so far. Fantastic planning by us to have, the Buddy Healed episode number 17 coming out after Buddy has some good games and he chooses the jersey number 17. We planned for all of this, so
Perfectly scripted.
But yeah,
Perfect.
man. I don't think anyone would be feeling as good as they are right now. Over this last few days, like this time last week or so, it was pretty bleak, but still plenty of work to do the rest of the season. But at least some wins under the belt for the Sixers recently. Hometown kid is coming back, so plenty to look forward to. At least the vibes are not completely tanking heading into the All-Star break. If anything, they're at least hitting a stagnation with some nice wins and a key addition before the break starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like how the weather was today in the Philadelphia area. It was a bit dark, a bit stormy in the wake of Joel Embiid's knee injury, the surgery to the meniscus. And then by the mid-afternoon, the sun was out bright and shining, and things are looking a little bit brighter moving on ahead. So definitely a improved past few days. And, it all started with, of course, the Sixers win over the Washington Wizards on Saturday night. And Sam, you actually traveled down to Washington for that game. So what really stood out, I think we both know what really stood out. Everyone knows it was the Ricky Council game. But in addition to that, what really stood out? What did you see while you were down there?
They were in a very precarious spot because not because of the injuries that they've been dealing with previously to Embiid and some other key players, but Mo Bamba being out left them in an interesting spot center-wise. I asked Nick Nurse pregame about Kenneth Lofton potentially playing, and he gave kind of a general answer of like, yeah, we'll see what happens, and he ended up not getting it. KJ Martin was the backup 5. Tobias Harris got some minutes at the 5. It was a pretty, it was definitely one of those games. It was as must win as they come for a team so banged up. Like you just have to find a way to get back in the win column. And against that smelly Wizards team, like that was as good of a chance as any. It was pretty close for a good amount of the game, and it wasn't super comfortable at the end, but they ended up maintaining that cushion and riding it out. The story of the game was obviously Ricky Council the fourth. He was absolutely fantastic, and his first time really getting real NBA minutes, he was just outstanding. His energy was felt so many different ways. Buddy Hield and Tyrese Maxey, the first game of that backcourt, they were huge as well. Both of them in their own ways. They had their own kind of runs, and Buddy the third, Maxey the fourth, to my recollection, where they had some big scoring outbursts that really helped uplift the Sixers. Tobias Harris, not at all a game to speak of. It was one of those nights where it's probably best served just staying off of social media. It's tough to, what degree I forget the injury he had against Cleveland. Was it a knee thing that he had?
Talking about Tobias had the not hip pointer. It was a hip impingement.
Okay. So that injury, it's tough to see, how much that impacted him, but he certainly was not great against the Wizards. He was not very good, but he did at least, with him at the 5, they were able to go to those spaced out looks that really helped unlock Maxey being able to get downhill. Because I thought Denny Avdija actually played some really good defense against him. He was really good. Tyus Jones, I think, had a career high in 3-pointers made. Just interesting game overall. And obviously good on the Sixers for getting that one out, stopping their losing streak.
Yeah, it looked as though Tyus Jones, the only rationale that I could come up with is that he held it against Philadelphia for not acquiring him at the trade deadline or not wanting him bad enough, according to some of the rumors that we heard heading into the trade deadline, because he absolutely unloaded from beyond the arc on Philadelphia from the first quarter. And Jones has consistently been a high percentage shooter from deep over the recent years, but he's never been a volume guy. And so for him to be shooting as if there was no tomorrow, that really was a negative signal for Philadelphia right from the jump. And when you look at just where Washington's been as a team all season long, it's tough to really talk about must-win games in February. I don't know how anyone would have felt about the Sixers team if they dropped a game to Washington. It's just it can be such a explosive blow to morale to lose a game, and excuses being what they are. No matter who you have on your roster, this is still a team that on paper is better than Washington and should be clearing them in any potential matchup. So to finish the game in a kind of a rather close one against them, yeah, that's not the ideal finish, but listen, a win's a win. They got off the 4-game slide with that win. It set up the game in Cleveland, which we're going to get to in a moment, and really just above anything else outside of the win, which of course, at the end of the day, is the most important thing. To see Ricky Council explode for a 19-point double-double was just so great for everyone. So great for the team involved. So great for Ricky Council, obviously. I think it was great for Sixers fans also because fans were just coming off of the Jaden Springer trade. And there were a lot of people, fans, media members. I mean, myself, I was not the biggest fan of the trade and was critical of Jared Morey, just in the sense that do I think that Jaden Springer is going to make the difference between the Sixers winning the finals this year or not? No, absolutely not. That being said, he has proven to be to have the potential to groom an elite skill. And when you send somebody who has an elite trait or the potential to grow into an elite trait to a contending division rival, that is where you start to lose me a little bit. But that being said, the rise of Rookie Council that has since come out of the ashes that were Jaden Springer in Philadelphia, I think has made everybody feel just that much better because after losing out on players like Charles Bassey, Isaiah Joe, now Jaden Springer, the most recent, just to know that you have that youth in Philadelphia, that player who is almost a symbol of hope in the way that kind of Tyrese Maxey was at first, that Paul Reed was during his first season, and how he just leaped right over expectations. Just to have that guy now in Ricky Council, I think it's just good and healthy for Sixers fans, given the disappointment that is the state of this team in terms of health. So to have him go off in that game, absolutely great for him, great for the team. They loved it. Kelly Oubre was loving it. Talking about C4, Chris Ricky Council the fourth, obviously Council the fourth. He's just explosive. It writes itself, honestly. I mean, you got Kelly Oubre, K9, who's mad like a dog, and you got C4 Ricky Council, who's just explosive when you watch him play. This is an all-time high for some of the nicknames in Philadelphia. We're talking about Buddy Love coming to the city of brotherly love after all these years. Just absolutely an all-time high for nicknames in Philadelphia with these Sixers right now. And those vibes have carried over to wins incredibly. So definitely impressive. We talked about Buddy Love. How integral has he been? And obviously the answer is a ton. He's been one of the main reasons for their success. Sam, how integral has he been in these past 2 wins? We'll get to a little bit more of the details in Cleveland in just a second, but just with these first 2 wins, and even we saw it in the Atlanta game, just what a difference he brought to this offense. What's really stood out to you as far as what he brings to the table different than anyone else on this roster?
First off, real quick, I had to confiscate my cat's little shaker toy here to make sure that I could be heard. Sorry, buddy. But Ricky's been huge, man. I mean, I feel like we've seen with the Sixers that athleticism on the wing that has been kind of, scarce in recent years. Like Ricky brings that. He's got good size. He's super athletic, and he puts it to great use time and time again. one of the things real quick on the Springer front, it's interesting that, Daryl Morey made the calculation of the pick was more valuable to the Sixers than Jaden Springer, but the Celtics made the opposite. And because of all the success that they have had, it just makes it look really like interesting of what is Brad Stevens and company, see in him. But I ultimately think, maybe we'll see what chance Jaden gets in Boston. I think he's hurt right now, but I think that trade, even though I also was skeptical of it, I think it's just best for both sides. Like, it was clear Jaden was not going to reach his ultimate potential here. The Sixers wanted more out of him that they weren't ready to get, and they ended up, kind of just restocking the asset cupboard, trading him to a team that, maybe could be really good for his development. We will see, but Ricky has been super, super good. He's got obviously nice athleticism, which he puts to use in the open court. That one dunk he had, I think it was late in the game against Washington. It looked like for most guys, like they didn't have enough runway, enough speed build up to get that dunk, but he did. In the half court, he's got, certainly some areas to polish up on, but as we kind of saw in the summer league with him, he's really good at attacking the basket. Feels like he's really good at just, keeping himself controlled. Even if a defender can get him off balance, he's able to get a shot up or draw a foul, which he's been pretty solid at least for an undrafted rookie getting his first go at it. I think he's been super important. His offensive rebounding has been huge. 5 of them, 5 offensive rebounds against Washington was monumental. And I don't think he shot as well against Cleveland, but he still provided that, athletic boost on the wing that, especially when they're down so many guys, like having a guy that plays that hard. And Nick Nurse talked about it after the game, just that intensity that he carries with him all the time and whatever it is, and have it on the court has obviously been super important for the Sixers.
I didn't say a word. I wasn't going to interrupt you. Once you started talking about Ricky Council, the people need to hear more about Ricky Council. So I'm glad that you went through all of the every little bit that goes into how impressive that he's been so far. I was talking about Buddy Hield. So what from Buddy Hield? You're totally
Did I just completely mishear you?
Frankie giveth, Frankie taketh away. We're working on training the mascot right now.
Did you say Buddy Hield and I just totally misheard you?
I did move on to Buddy Hield. Totally cool, because listen, the people need to know about Ricky Council. So that was an absolute gift. An absolute gift. Happy to hear it. And we're looking forward to absolutely more Ricky Council on this pod going forward. So best case scenario, because now the great part is that we still get to talk about Buddy Hield. Okay.
Yeah. He deserves to be talked about. That was not any subliminal if I don't want to talk about.
He absolutely does. It's no slight to Buddy. We're just excited about and who's not? Even Frankie. Frankie distracting you just so we can talk about Ricky Council that much more. So listen, we're excited to see what he can do against Miami tomorrow night. Obviously you and I will be down at the game watching Ricky. But that being said, there's going to be someone else on that court tomorrow night, and that is, of course, Buddy Hield. So sharpshooter Buddy Hield coming from the Indiana Pacers. Sam, over these first 3 games, Atlanta, obviously with these last 2 where he's been playing alongside Maxey, he's looked even better. What stood out from his performance overall?
Well, what has really stood out is the fact that he is proved to be so much more than just a shooter. Obviously, players are not entirely just one-dimensional where they can only do one thing, but I think everybody had the impression of, oh, hey, this is a guy who's going to just, shoot it from 3, use his movement, just get open and just launch threes. And he's certainly done that. But what I really did not know that much about, and what he has shown spectacularly in these first few games, is that he knows exactly how to use his gravity to the best that he can. And he is very comfortable driving into the paint and making plays for others. Nick and Tyrese both talked about this in Washington, just how smart he is. Like, maybe if you think of high IQ players, Buddy Hield might not be a name that comes to mind, but you just watch him play and he obviously understands, for a guy that's got that reputation just to score for a guy, he knows like where the cracks in defense are and how to exploit them. Obviously he's looking to shoot and he does that really well, and this is part of what the Sixers have done well. They're putting him in sets where the defense has to pursue him really hard. And he does a really good job of just attacking into the paint. And whether it's drawing to and making a nice dump off pass to the center, whether it's getting into the paint, and he's got a really nice kind of like wide like scoop layup that he's able to hit. And it's been super impressive to see how he can just operate in the offense as, obviously an emergency top option. I imagine that he'll start with, Maxey and be somewhere that third, fourth option once Embiid comes back. But the reps he has had on the ball, it's been really impressive. He's not break down the defender type of guy, but he is obviously super good at relocating. And like I said, using his shooting ability to manufacture open looks for both himself and his teammates. And, shout out to Nick Nurse for putting him in a bunch of different sets, whether it's, kind of the two guys starting on the side ring of the ball and they can meet in the middle, whether it's the pitch action where Tyrese will just kind of flip the ball back to him, or whether it's, ghosting a screen where Buddy will run up, pretend to set the screen and immediately flare back out. It's just been a super clean fit so far. And the playmaking has really popped too. Buddy's average, I think, just a shade under 7 assists. Only 3 games, take the sample size for what it is. But he really has been impressive so far. He just looks like a guy who always, knows where to be and always knows what he needs to do to score the ball.
Yeah, and first and foremost, credit to Buddy Hield, absolutely. Before I get back to what exactly Hield's done that stood out, you mentioned Nick Nurse, and he's really put him in a position to succeed, giving him these different looks on offense and that two-man game with Maxey. That when Joel Embiid, I'll say if, but I feel pretty confident saying when Joel Embiid returns this season, what's incredible is that lethal two-man game that Maxey and Embiid ran earlier this season, Buddy Hield has shown me enough just from his obviously shooting, but also his playmaking and his ability to make quick, decisive shots, has proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's going to be able to run that same exact action with Joel Embiid. And this is something that is kind of like that JJ Redick plus, that Seth Curry plus. And I think that's a lot of the role that Hield was expected to play coming in, and that's going to be absolutely lethal. But you're right. What he's shown is that he can also do even more than that. And I love how you mentioned his confidence and his ability, driving to the rack, and not only just his bodily control to be able to finish in the paint, but also just to kick it up into the open man, like you said. In addition to that, there is this sense of confidence that he just has outside of the arc. I mean, there's been multiple plays where he's just had the ball at the top of the key, and he puts the ball in the triple threat, and he just tempts the defender, who has to make a real calculated, judgment call. Is Buddy going to shoot this? Is he going to drive? Is he going to kick it out? Because he's had success doing all three. And when you show and display that type of success at those three options, the triple threat, it just opens up completely for you. And for him to be able to shoot as well as he does on contested jumpers, this is something that we've not seen from a player in a Sixers jersey, possibly since Iverson. And he is a better shooter than Iverson as well. I mean, Maxey is a phenomenal shooter, but that's just not exactly his game. He does a lot of, obviously, the relocation threes we've seen from Tyrese Maxey. We've seen a lot of the step backs. He's learned a lot about that from James Harden. Of course, the two-man game that I mentioned with Joel Embiid earlier, we've seen that with a lot of Maxey's volume, but there's just a stone cold brass set of cojones that Buddy Hield has, where he will hold the ball at the top of the key and he will look you right in your soul. And if he senses a weakness even for a second, he's pulling up right then and there, and he's going to drain that three. And you just see this ball go in almost with power from beyond the arc. It's incredible. Some of the most accurate shots that we've seen from three, and it's so exciting. And yes, there's a little bit of a honeymoon period likely that can often happen. In Philadelphia, fans are typically used to saying that a guy comes and he forgets how to shoot when he comes to the Sixers. So we're already in the gravy and the bonus from there. But while there is admittedly somewhat of a honeymoon period here with Buddy Hield's success, while they're effectively running so many multiple looks that it's tough to strategize against it, this just shows that there's going to be so much optionality for this offense as guys continue to come back and be healthy, as Tobias Harris eventually comes back, as Nico Batum eventually comes back, D'Anthony Melton, Joel Embiid. And he talked about the starting lineup for Hield going forward and what his role might be. Obviously, when D'Anthony Melton was healthy and everyone was healthy, that was one of the greatest starting fives in all of basketball. That being said, this back injury has everything up in the air, and it has been lingering for so long, and now he has a history of back injuries. I could very well see a world in which D'Anthony Melton continues to start when he comes back, assuming that he's healthy, even when Embiid's there, Nico Batum's there. I could absolutely see them rolling with that lineup. At the same time, I could absolutely see Nick Nurse rolling with Buddy Hield instead of D'Anthony Melton. And part of the reason is while Melton brings so much more defensively to the table, even though I think Hield has exceeded expectations defensively. I won't say he's been a great defender, but he's exceeded expectations early on. Even still, just the offensive ability and the ability to take that pressure off of Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, I think will be absolutely immense for the Sixers. So I could absolutely see a world where Hield is starting, and despite the success that they saw with Melton, I may even suggest it as the course of action, be so bold as to suggest that, because the name of the game for the rest of the regular season, if and when Joel Embiid comes back, is to ramp him up and get him into shape for the postseason. And in order to do that, they're going to have to take some of that offensive burden off of him for however many regular season games he has in him. So making sure to incorporate Buddy Hield is definitely a key factor in that. Anything else stand out from the Cleveland game for? Obviously, they absolutely lit up one of the top defenses in the entire NBA, one of the best, hottest teams in the NBA as well. Anything else stand out from that game for you, Sam?
The thing that really it felt like it was a theme from the moment the game started for the Sixers offense. They were living in the paint. I mean, this is a very good Cleveland defense. I think I don't know what the stats are as of right now, but they came into the game at least second in offensive rating, and they just know how to get after it defensively. But the Sixers just did not care. They continued to score in the paint, and it wasn't just, fast breaks, cherry picking, whatnot, getting the ball out ahead. They were doing a great job breaking down the Cavs defense in the half court. Obviously, they played drop coverage with their centers. Obviously, you want to keep guys like Allen and Mobley close to the rim so they can impact as many shots. But it gave guys some room to either attack, and whether it was Buddy kind of drawing a defender over and then kicking it down to the roll man, or whether it was Tyrese finding that space, whether it was they were attacking the slow-footed big, or they were forcing that switch to bring them out into space and try again. Like, it just worked super well time and time again. And I think you talk about hot 3-point shooting nights. I think it's fair to say that they kind of had a hot 2-point shooting night, because they were shooting, not super tough shots, but they obviously weren't getting right at the rim. They were living in a lot of floater range and, push shots. I feel like those are a lot of what Kelly was doing in particular. He had a pretty solid game, 10 of 14 shooting off the top of my mind, which was obviously super impactful and efficient. But it was so impressive the way that they were able to just stick with it. And obviously the Cavs, very talented team, playing nearly full strength, cut their deficit like that multiple times late in the game, got really, really worrisome for the Sixers. It looked like they were about to lose it, but they held on. And that last possession with Paul stuffing Donovan Mitchell at the rim and Garland missing that three in the corner, that was just huge. And I thought about this as I was publishing my recap. I'm like, do I want to say best win of the season? Do I want to say one of the best wins? But kind of quickly settled on that just has to be the best win of the season. One of the best teams they've beating them on the road, not a super long road trip, but just on this brief road trip, down so many guys, like following the trade deadline.
And top tier guys. I mean, we're talking about 4 out of 5 starters, including the reigning league MVP. Mm-hmm. And if he wasn't hurt, favorite to win MVP yet again. I mean, these are not just depth guys that we're talking about that they were missing.
Right, for sure. And obviously, you want to look at, the Timberwolves game obviously stands out. They, beating the Celtics is always a good thing for the Sixers, but just the way that they were able to hunker down, and they got so many good games from guys all over the roster. I mean, Tyrese was good, but it wasn't like that win against the Jazz where he had a career high 51 points. This was a very well-rounded effort. Tyrese, again, was very good in this game, but to get really solid games from Buddy, Campaign did really solid job. It was I don't know how many games they've played where both Paul and Mo were both on their A game. I feel like Paul Reed and Mo Bamba were both really, really solid, hanging with two of the better, at least young, stars in the game. Super well-rounded effort from all the guys that played. Even Nick Nurse, I mean, he was huge in that game too. Not something he did super long, but I thought it was fascinating that he went to a 3-point guard lineup with Campaign, Maxey, and Turk Smith for a little bit. But yeah, man, that was just a huge win for the Sixers, top to bottom. And I think it absolutely stands alone as the best win of the season to date with all the circumstances.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the way that you phrase it is perfect, considering all circumstances, because as great as the Minnesota win was, as much fun as Embiid's 70-point performance was, just with how high the stakes were, everything stacked up against Philadelphia in this game, just the opportunity for potential failure was so strong, and yet the team overcame. And you had performances that stood out from guys like KJ Martin and Ricky Council, which were absolutely key. Mo Bamba, I think, played his best game as a Sixer in that game against Cleveland, and he, on top of that, just showed what a great presence he is, kind of behind the scenes as well. Right after that game-winning block that Paul Reed put on Donovan Mitchell as well. You have Mo Bamba storming the court to celebrate with him, and that's just kind of the guy that Mo is. He's been such a light presence in the locker room, in the sense of such an amicable, team friendly guy, and putting his teammates first throughout the season. So there's a lot to say about his play on the court and areas that he can improve, but it's not to say that he hasn't been crucial to this team in other areas. And we even saw that kind of bleed over today, where he's already being a top tier teammate to his newest teammate of all, the guy that we're going to get to next. You're talking about Philly native Kyle Lowry, who just came back. Obviously, the big news that he officially signed with the Sixers today. He is still, this is where Mo Bamba comes in, he is still going to be wearing number 7, which he's worn over the majority of his career, because Mo Bamba was a good guy and gave him 7. I mean, now, did Mo Bamba get something on the side? We'll never know. We see that happen in the NFL all the time. But either way, he was a good guy, gave Kyle Lowry the number. And now Lowry is set to make his Sixers debut at some point this season. But you got something for me on that, Sam?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not my joke, but ladies and gentlemen, this is Bamba number 5. Going back to the jersey,
yeah,
he was
exactly.
his first number from I think when he was a rookie, and perfect fit that I'm sure we will be saying repeatedly. But yes, good guy Mo Bamba giving Lowry his number 7.
For sure. So listen, Kyle Lowry, this was, I think, the plan the entire time when they were talking about the Patrick Beverley move, trading Patrick Beverley to the Milwaukee Bucks. Campaign has been more than serviceable since that trade went down. Obviously, gaining a second-round pick for a guy signed to a minimum like Patrick Beverley is just pretty much always a good idea, one would say. But the idea was to get Kyle Lowry in here, and now he is finally a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. Sam, what are your expectations of Lowry finishing out this season and possibly going into the postseason with Philadelphia?
I think it's a solid move. One of the things Daryl said he was asked about Pat Bev's comments and the decision to trade him. And one of the things that he said was that they saw his role diminishing. And so they decided to send him to a place where they know he's going to play. Not only is he a fit for what Milwaukee kind of needed, but he's reuniting with Doc Rivers. They obviously spent years together with the Clippers, very familiar with each other. Pat will have plenty of chances to play there. And it's kind of one of the worst kept secrets in the league that Lowry and the Sixers were due for a union at some point. I'm very interested to see what he's able to do, how Nick Nurse wants to use him. I think he does have some stuff left in the tank. I think his shooting and his ability to make plays will be much needed with the Sixers. I think that defensively he'll be helpful. It's always tough to see what guys can give at this stage in his career. One thing's for sure, the motivation will obviously be there. Philly guy coming home. It's very cool to have two of these really big Philly reunions in a season is pretty cool. And Lowry should be sliding into that role that Pat had and now that Cam has as like a high minutes guy off the bench leading the offense when Maxey sits. He's probably a guy that I think you kind of invite maybe some troubles if you're playing him and Maxey together for too long. But I do think that, having Maxey out there will take some pressure off of Lowry. And I think that he is a good enough shooter and a smart enough player to help make Maxey's life easier during the time they're out there. So very interested to see. I'm very interested to see if he plays. I'm sure he wants to play against the Heat, which, to my knowledge, that it was kind of a rocky tenure there for as successful as it was. He is now on the injury report at the time of this recording, and they update the injury report every hour. So once the signing was official, you would assume that he would be added right away if there was something, but there doesn't appear to be. But with the Sixers already down 5 guys heading into the game, you would imagine that they would hope that he's active just so they can have another guy out there if needed. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what Larry still has and how what his role is with the Sixers.
Yeah, a lot of people love to throw out the word cooked when it comes to Kyle Lowry just because he is approaching the twilight of his career. I don't think that he's cooked. Like, he's not the same player that he was in his heyday in Toronto. I think he'd even be honest about that. But when you look at what he's provided, I mean, you can look at the regular season with Miami. You can look at the postseason even. People are quick to point to the postseason and say, well, hey, he didn't start most of these games. They moved him to the bench. That doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't contribute. Miami on their road to the finals, he was still a meaningful contributor, still shooting at a high percentage, still facilitating, all the way. And he's been effective at dishing out the ball without accruing a lot of turnovers. So effectively what a lot of people were hoping to see out of Tyus Jones, Kyle Lowry's still been able to provide. So I think that he will supplant Campaign as the primary backup point guard of this team. I think that's for the best. It's definitely a defensive upgrade. Campaign's played phenomenally so far for the Sixers compared to what people expected of him. And I love the idea of having him as that third option, just as a safety net for whatever whatever point guard needs you may have as the season goes on. And also because you don't want Kyle Lowry necessarily maxing his minutes effectively and wearing himself out in the regular season. So I think that that's definitely going to be useful and helpful for Philadelphia. And again, you mentioned Lowry defensively. I do think that he is a strong upgrade from both Maxey and also from Campaign, even though Maxey's been great as an energy defender this year. And I think that that will allow you to play Maxey and Lowry together for spurts. Again, like you said, you don't want to have them on the court at the same time for too long. But if we're talking about a couple minutes in a playoff game, that's something that you can definitely get away with. No real concern there. So definitely kind of a slam dunk of a move. Awesome to see that he's keeping number 7, except for his first stint in the NBA with the Memphis Grizzlies and his first season with the Toronto Raptors, because Andrea Bargnani wore 7. Kyle Lowry has worn 7 for his entire career. So it is very cool to see that he is sticking with that in Philadelphia. Once again, very cool of Mo Bamba to do that. And hopefully, yeah, he does premiere in this game against Miami. I think that's something that Sixers fans will look forward to. Like you said, the team is just a little bit short-staffed, so I think they wouldn't mind if Lowry wants to play in this game. And that Heat career of Lowry's, again, as you said, was not necessarily the most amicable that entire time. So I think there's a little bit of motivation on that end too, but we'll see what exactly goes into that come tomorrow when the Sixers do face the Miami Heat at home. But one more game before we head into the All-Star break. Definitely couldn't come at a better moment for the Sixers, who could stand to get a lot healthier and are expected to be a lot healthier after this trade deadline. But for now, listen, you're coming off of 2 wins. You can make it 3 in a row heading into the break. If you find a way to manage that, I think the sky's the limit for the Sixers team coming out the other end with, again, hopefully a lot more health and potentially 3 starters returning to the lineup, which cannot, I repeat, cannot be overstated. So for now, we're going to take a little wait and see, watch a little Tyrese Maxey in the All-Star game with the 3-point contest, and also, of course, the All-Star game itself.
Skills challenge, not the 3-point contest.
Is he not in the 3-point contest?
It was reported originally as a 3-point contest, but he was asked about it. I was there. A few others were at his charity event at the Snipe store at the Roosevelt Mall, and he kind of danced around it a little bit. Part of that was because he couldn't officially, it wasn't made official by the league, but the league's announcement is that he's going to be in the skills challenge.
Okay, so he's in the skills challenge. Do we know about the 3-point contest yet?
Yeah, so he's not going to be one of the guys in there. I'm not sure what changed. I'm not sure if Chris Haynes was told something else that didn't change later. Regardless, but yeah, the official league announcement was that he will be in. He's one of obviously it's different format now with not too different, but all right. So Tyrese will be with Trae Young and Scotty Barnes on Team All Stars as one of the 3 teams. They're going up against a trio of Pacers and a trio of number 1 overall picks. So Tyrese will be in the skills challenge, not the 3-point contest. But that should still be very fun. That's kind of an underrated thing, the skills challenge. It can be pretty fun. Obviously not as iconic as the 3-pointer or the dunk contest, but should still be pretty fun.
Yeah, and especially with Maxey in it, it's going to be that much more exciting. 3-point contest, looking at Malik Beasley, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, Lauri Markkanen, Donovan Mitchell, Karl Anthony Towns, and Trae Young. So you're still looking at an absolute wealth of talent there also. Who's in the dunk contest this year? Have they
Jaylen Brown, Jaime Hawkins Jr., Mac McClung, and Jacob Toppin. Those are the at least Jaylen Brown is a pretty notable name. Jaime Hawkins Jr. was in the dunk contest, I think in high school. I've seen those clips.
Yeah, he was. I've seen the clip, yeah.
Mac McClung, reigning champion with the Osceola Magic, the Magic's G League team.
Okay.
And there's a Toppin brother.
I gotta say, good for Jaylen Brown, because I think that's what people want to see more of, is that all-star caliber player making it in there. And I obviously love Mac McClung, and it was great to see him bring the championship to Philly last year. And there's a certain point with some of these guys where it's like, listen, if the best dunkers are playing, that's what truly matters. Mm-hmm. It's just that there's some real star talent out there that is definitely capable of competing with these guys, and they're just not, for whatever reason, just not finding it worth their while. But either way, it should still be a fun weekend of festivities. Be sure to watch, of course, Tyrese Maxey in the All-Star game and the skills challenge, not the 3-point contest. You can take the 3-point contest or whatever, I guess. If there's no Sixers in it, then just do whatever you feel like. But take some time, unwind, relax, just enjoy some generic basketball-related festivities. And hopefully Tyrese Maxey just goes absolutely berserk in the All-Star game itself. It definitely has that capability to do so. But for now, focusing on Miami, and we will probably take a break over the All-Star break, I'm assuming, for the pod, unless we feel like anything notable has happened after this Miami game. But otherwise, we'll check back in with you guys after the All-Star break. But for today, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for taking the time. Of course, I've been Zach Chevalola here with Sam DiGiovanni as always. Follow the pod on Twitter at ProcessingPod76, myself at Chavo NBA, and Sam by Sam DiGiovanni, all on Twitter. And don't forget to check out my work at Philly Sports Network and Sam's work at Clutch Points. And listen, this is the time to unwind, relax, grab a beer, take a breather. Just remember, at the end of the day, each and every one of us, whether you're fans, media, or players, we're still processing.